defenders dropping like flies, the rise of Richarlison, and I might just have a surprise. I've got everything covered, and this is the Game Week 36 preview. One of the biggest topics this week, and therefore what we're going to start with, is should we bench Anthony Gordon, given the fact that away from home, he hasn't recorded nearly as many points as he has at home. So here are two graphics side by side which showcase his performances away from home and at St James's Park. Right, 131 compared to 38 is a huge difference, and you can see it in pretty much every statistic. Shots, XG, goals, big chances created, etc, XA, etc. So why is that? Well, firstly, Newcastle probably get on the ball a little bit less away from home. I don't think their press is as intense. And because they don't have the ball as much, especially not as high, and they're not winning it as high, the type of chances they're creating, they're just a little bit different. They require slower build-up and better sequences between players. And given the volume of injuries they've had, it's very difficult to sustain a rhythm in the side game on game when you have so many injuries and players are coming in and out, because you build relationships with players, right? Especially when breaking down things like low blocks. Not that Burnley play one, but nonetheless, when you go away from home and against the smaller sides, quote unquote, you're going to have a lot of games where you have to dominate the ball to score against these low blocks and play with nice sequences and good patterns of play. And Newcastle haven't really had that away from home. That's mainly the biggest thing. However, I don't think that's enough reason to bench him, because Burnley give you a very different scenario, right? They give you a scenario whereby they'll press you more intensely than others will, and this system dictates that there will be a lot of isolated situations. Now, Anthony Gordon will thrive in that, right? Give him repeatedly situations where he faces his fullback 1v1, and he will do very well. He has done so all season. And it's for that reason that this fixture is slightly different to the norm, whereby they'll have more opportunities to catch Burnley in transition. And even through their natural build-up, there'll be a bit more space. And I think Gordon could really flourish there. He's in great form. He's pushing for a Euro spot. Newcastle is still pushing for Europe. And the other options aren't better than him. For example, like Bruno's got a knock, potentially. And do you really want Bruno coming off early or coming off the bench? No, not really. Jackson has a good fixture against West Ham, right? Don't get me wrong. But does he have a higher ceiling than Gordon with the amount of chances he's been missing? Probably not. So with the form that Gordon's in, I think it only makes sense to start him. And now we come to my favourite differential of the lot, Richarlison. And I think of all the differentials, he will be the best one for the run-in. The image at the bottom is of the games where Richarlison consistently played at number 9. Now, as you can see, he returned in all but one, including 2 double-digit hauls. And it wasn't just assists, he was scoring. So at 9, he's been fantastic this season, right? And managers who owned him earlier in the piece, they did very well. Now, let's take a look at these two images that I've got here. We've got Richarlison being occupied by the Everton centre-backs and Son being occupied by Gabriel and Saliba. Now, with no disrespect to the Everton centre-backs, we know that Gabriel and Saliba are a better and harder combination to face. However, Son got very little change out of the two. Very little. Whereas Richarlison, when he came on, caused him a bit more of a problem. Even if that was just simply through his movement, the fact that he's a chaos creator, the fact he's a little bit more aggressive, he got more things out of them. And as a result, Spurs, they probably got on the ball a bit more. They got a bit higher up the pitch because they could, right? Richarlison was able to stretch them. The game against Everton is actually a fantastic example because here, there doesn't really appear for too much to be going on. But he showed the ability to just create space for himself. He showed the intelligence, and he showed the fact that he's good enough to score from these type of situations, right? It's not that Son can't do it. It's just that Richarlison can do it as well. Now, why is this important? Why did I specifically pick out on Son against the Arsenal centre-backs? Because, like I said, he didn't get much change out of them. So Postecoglou brought on Richarlison to reverse that. Now, Postecoglou has spoken about how he's never really had him and Son fit for an extended period of time to play Richarlison at 9 and Son on the left, and that's what his preference is. So if he likes that, and he's publicly stated that, he's very likely to continue to do so in the run-in. Now, look at the fixtures we have, right? We've got Liverpool next week, and with their higher line, and just the way Richarlison is, he will be fired up for that fixture, right? Then you've got a double, which consists of Burnley at home and Man City at home. 2 home fixtures. The cursed fixture, of course, which is good for Spurs in the form of Manchester City, and a relegation threatened Burnley. And then we finish the season with Sheffield United away. So to briefly summarize, we've got a top quality player here, right? Who is underrated in terms of not only his finishing, but overall impact on the game, and someone who's certainly the manager's preference. He's able to occupy the centre-backs. He's able to cause them problems. He offers Spurs a different dynamic, and with good fixtures, he could be a very good differential for the run-in. But there's one more thing I want to speak about, and it's actually how next season could be really, really good for him right now. Postecoglou has not made the mistake that Ten Hag has made, right? He has stamped his authority all over the team. The best game probably being Chelsea. Now, whether you agree with it or not, he stuck to his principles. That we were playing that way with that high line, and we don't really care about the conditions in the game. He is, again, as I stated earlier, preferred to have Richarlison fit at 9 and Son at left wing. He's publicly stated this. So, given that he's got this opportunity now for the first time this season, there's a very good chance that he just continues with it for the rest of the season to build some momentum into next season, to show the players that he wants to play exactly like this, so that they get a more familiar and better understanding of this playstyle. And I think that could see Richarlison start at 9 every single game, and thus him do really well. Finally, it makes him a fantastic option with regards to expected minutes, and as we know, that's just becoming an increasingly important variable in FPL. Right. Defenders are dropping like leaves from trees, and with bench boost 37 fast approaching, it's imperative that we get the best defense sorted. So what I've done here is I've taken my favorite assets in the defensive department and put them in tiers so you can see which ones I think are more important. Starting with Guardiola, he has been nothing short of sensational as of late. And it's not just the fact that he's recording output in the forms of goals and assists, but his overall performances, the way he's been playing, the way he interacts with his teammates on the pitch has been fantastic. His 1v1 ability, the way he's tracked back, his positioning on the pitch in terms of when they're on the ball, how technically sound he is, he's been phenomenal, right? And given there's not too many good options in terms of defenders who have good attacking upside, for me, he's a lock. Porro's similar in the sense that maybe he hasn't been as good, but with set pieces, with his technical quality, the fact that Udogi's injured, so he has to take more responsibility in terms of build-up and attacking actions in the final third, and good fixtures, both in 38 and a good double in 37, consisting of Burnley. I think for me, he has to be in the side. So those are the first two names, and I would say they're both absolute locks. From there, selecting the next three is significantly harder. For me, we have to have one Man United asset in there. Given they've got 2 home games, even though it's Arsenal and Newcastle, because it's 2 home games, because I like Onana, right? He's not here because it's about the defenders, but I like Onana for his high upside. The Burnley fixtures show that, for example. Had he kept a clean sheet, that was a double-digit haul. Dalot and Maguire both have goals and assists in them, and I like that. I like the fact that at least even if they don't get a defensive return in the form of a clean sheet, I can get attacking return. So I think we should be looking to build our squad with one of those. Dan Burn's a pretty safe option, just the fact that the fixtures are pretty decent. He's cheap. He can potentially score from a corner, and there's no real other replacements for him. If Fabian Schär is injured, then he's probably the best one to go for, especially with good expected minutes. Romero's an interesting one. You saw against Arsenal how many goals he can score from set pieces, right? And even if he just charges up the pitch and Raya gives him the ball. So he offers a very different dynamic whereby, are you too expecting of a Spurs clean sheet? Probably not. But are you expecting of Romero to generate chances for himself in a game? Most certainly. So that could be another option. And that already gives you 6 options, depending on your squad structure, to go from there. Now, you probably don't want triple Man United defense. I will assume you have Onana. We've already discussed Richarlison. Maybe you want Richarlison. So with that in mind, we have to take one more option. Reguilón's got good fixtures from now till the end of the season, and playing in a system which supports his attacking abilities, there's an option there. We've already spoke about Arsenal assets, but if you wish to go there, given they've got decent upside, you can go there. A Forest defender is pretty interesting because, again, similar to Reguilón, the fixtures are very good. I personally brought in Nico Williams on my wildcard, and unfortunately that didn't work because he got injured, but someone like Murillo, if he's fit, or Ola Aina, they could all be good options. So I would advise you to maybe think slightly outside of the box with regard to that 5th spot. They don't necessarily have to be a doubler. It's why, for example, I didn't include Van Heck. The fixtures weren't great. Brighton's probabilities of keeping a clean sheet weren't great, and there wasn't much attacking upside. So in that case, I'm more than happy to take a single game week option in the form of a Forest defender, for example. Right, this will be a short section on the Arsenal players and how I'm not particularly bullish on their defenders. The tweet there you see is from prior to the Game Week 35 deadline, where I speculate that they'll only keep one clean sheet in the next 4. And I'm going to stand by that. And if it happens, it's going to happen in one of the 2 home fixtures. United in 37 is a real banana skin fixture. And to be honest, you could even call it more than that. It's probably a bit disrespectful to Man United. They're obviously a good side. They have a lot of talent. They just have gone about things in a very interesting way this season. but they will cause you problems. Going to Old Trafford and trying to win the league there is never an easy task. It never will be. It never has been. And thus, I think they would almost definitely concede there. They look a little bit shaky, honestly, as of late. Against Spurs, they conceded 2. It could have been more. They obviously lost to Bayern. They lost to Villa. And I think, look, it showed a fantastic amount of character for them to win at Spurs, given the adversity they were facing in terms of the situation within the game, but also what had happened before. And that showed great character. But going into this run-in, I personally think they're going to fall short again. And given the likes of Bournemouth and Everton have genuine attacking quality in the form of Solanke, for example, who's going for the gold and blue, Kluivert's in good form, McNeil, Decore, DCL, they can all cause problems. I only see 1 clean sheet out of these last 3. If we assume that Man United definitely score, then I'm just going to play the probabilities and say that one of Bournemouth and Everton also score as well. And thus, given they've only got 1 game, there's other double game week assets that we have looked at. I think it's better for you to avoid them personally. I understand this isn't a popular opinion because, for example, Gabriel and White have fantastic upside, right? Both can score, and White particularly can get assists, but I just don't think it's worth it when you have slightly better options with an extra fixture. Even if they're not super likely to keep clean sheets, there are options in the form, for example, Dalot and Maguire, not great fixtures, but the upside is there in terms of their attacking returns. Now, captaincy is a very interesting one this week. It looks pretty simple on the surface. I'd say you just assume, oh, Haaland's the best captain, and he may very well be. But let's look at the graphic on the left, and this is everyone in the league sorted by expected goals conceded. And West Ham find themselves in company they probably wouldn't like in the form of Sheffield United and Luton to complete the back 3. Man United being as low as they are is quite surprising, but nonetheless. And you've got West Ham there. Now, Cole Palmer has been in incredible form at home. Incredible. And official FPL actually posted a graphic on Twitter earlier where they showcased how well he'd been doing at home recently. And honestly, it was mind-blowing how well he had done. So, given that in mind, and given West Ham aren't in the greatest of form defensively especially, I think this could be a real opportunity for those who want to go slightly against the grain to go for Cole Palmer. Sounds similar. The graphic there is, well, the picture there is of him exploiting the Liverpool high line and scoring in the reverse fixture. Obviously, there was a lot of controversy surrounding that fixture, but nothing can take away from the fact that that was a very nice finish from him and a good goal from Spurs, right? And away at Anfield, with the way Liverpool are at the moment, they've got a lot of problems, especially defensively. I could honestly see Spurs winning that game, and Son, who else better, right, to exploit their high line. So, again, a really high upside differential option, both him and Palmer. Now, Haaland would be the probably sensible, smart choice, and it's probably where I'm leaning. But if you did fancy a risk, I see certainly merit with those 2 other options. I mean, Haaland looked pretty good when he came on against Forest, right? They've not got any other focus apart from the FA Cup final. So he'll be well rested for that Wolves game. It's at home. Wolves have a lot of injuries at the moment, and I feel like City are starting just to click back into gear, right? De Bruyne is looking better. Foden's been fantastic all season. Guardiola's just getting better and better every week. Grealish is now back. And all those things coming together, I think could see Haaland have a really explosive end to the season. Gary O'Neill's probably not going to go there with a low block. He'll probably go there with a mid block. And thus I can see City exploiting that quite well. And specifically Haaland. There's no real counter for Haaland. For example, there's no matchup which suggests that he'll do badly. And thus, for me, he's probably the best option. But should you wish to go for a high upside differential, you have 2 very, very good ones in the form of Son and Palmer. That concludes this week's version of the Game Week preview. If you did enjoy, if you could subscribe and like the video, that would be very, very much appreciated. I would be very grateful. And as mentioned, this will be here every week. So I shall see you next week. If you're watching this before the Chelsea Spurs game, enjoy it. And if not, I hope your points are abundant and have a terrific, terrific game week in Game Week 36. Goodbye.